Have you ever had that feeling? That prickling on the back of your neck? The sudden chill that runs down your spine when you're all alone in a quiet house? You tell yourself it's nothing, just the house settling, the wind whistling through the eaves. But what if it's not? What if that feeling is your brain's oldest, most primal instinct screaming at you that something is wrong? That you're not as alone as you think you are? I know, not exactly the spookiest day of the week. It was late autumn and the days were getting shorter, the nights longer and colder. I live in a pretty quiet neighborhood, the kind where everyone knows everyone, and nothing much ever happens. My house backs onto a small patch of woods, which I've always loved. It felt like my own private slice of nature. Until that night, I was working late from home, hunched over my laptop in my little office. The only light came from my desk lamp and the glow of the screen, casting long, dancing shadows across the room, rattling the branches of the old oak tree against my window. It was a familiar, almost comforting sound. I was so engrossed in my work that I didn't notice it at first. A subtle shift in the rhythm. The scratching of the branches suddenly seemed intentional. It wasn't the random, chaotic sound of wine-tossed branches. This was different, rhythmic, measured. I tried to ignore it, to chalk it up to an overactive imagination fueled by too much coffee and not enough sleep. But the sound persisted, a slow, deliberate scrape against the glass of my office window. Slowly, I pushed my chair back and crept towards the window. My office is on the ground floor, and the window looks directly out into the dark backyard and the woods beyond. I hesitated for a moment, my hand hovering over the curtains. A part of me didn't want to look. That little voice in my head was whispering, "Don't. Just leave it." But curiosity, that powerful, often foolish human trait, won out. I pulled the curtain back just a fraction of an inch and peered out. At first, all I saw was darkness. The familiar shapes of the trees, the silhouette of the shed, all bathed in the faint moonlight. Nothing seemed out of place. I let out a breath I didn't realize I was holding. See, nothing. Just the wind. I was about to turn away when something caught my eye. I froze, my eyes straining to pierce the gloom. And then I saw it. It wasn't a person. It was a shape, a silhouette darker than the surrounding night. It was tall, unnaturally so, and slender, with limbs that seemed too long, too jointed. It was standing perfectly still, right where the manicured edge of my lawn met the wild chaos of the woods. It was just watching my house, watching my window. A wave of pure, undiluted fear washed over me. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. My mind was racing, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. A trick of the light? A shadow from a strangely shaped tree? But no tree I'd ever seen moved like that. A slow, gliding motion that was utterly silent and deeply unsettling. It moved from the cover of the trees onto my lawn. My logical brain was in overdrive, screaming explanations at me. A prankster in a costume? But my gut, that primal instinct, knew better. This was something else. This was wrong. I stumbled back from the window, my hand flying to my mouth to stifle a scream. I fumbled for my phone, my fingers shaking so badly I could barely unlock it. Who do I call? The police? What would I even say? Hello, there's a tall shadow person standing in my yard? They'd think I was crazy. I took a deep, shaky breath and forced myself to look again. I had to be sure. I crept back to the window, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. I peeked through the tiny gap in the curtains. It was standing by the old bird bath in the middle of my lawn, its form still just a stark, featureless silhouette. It wasn't moving, just standing there. Its head, a smooth, dark oval, was tilted as if it was listening. It looked directly at my window, even though it had no eyes that I could see. It was a cold, heavy pressure. A feeling of being scrutinized, analyzed by something ancient and unknowable. That's when I broke. I yanked the curtains shut. I ran through the house. I turned on every single light in the house, flooding the rooms with a harsh, sterile brightness, trying to banish the oppressive darkness from outside. But it didn't help. Wrapped in a blanket, every rustle of leaves outside sent a fresh jolt of terror through me. I kept my eyes fixed on the living room window, expecting to see that tall, dark shapes silhouetted against the curtains at any moment. When the first gray light of dawn finally broke through, the fear didn't disappear, but it receded, pushed back by the familiar, comforting reality of a new day. I cautiously went back to my office and looked out the window. The yard was empty. The bird bath stood alone. The woods were just woods again. There were no footprints on the damp lawn, no sign that anything had been there at all. For a few days, I managed to convince myself I had imagined it, a waking nightmare brought on by stress. Life returned to a semblance of normal, but I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. I started drawing my curtains the moment the sun began to set. I avoided looking out the windows after dark. The woods behind my house no longer felt like a private sanctuary. They felt like a border to something else, something I didn't want to know about. I glanced out the window above the sink, a stupid, automatic habit. And there it was, not at the edge of the woods. This time, it was standing right next to my back porch, mere feet from the glass door. Its shape was clearer now in the glow of the porch light. It had no face, no features, just a solid, deep blackness that seemed to absorb the light around it. Its long, stick-like fingers were resting on the railing of the porch. I didn't scream this time. I was too scared to make a sound. I just dropped the plate I was holding and it shattered in the sink. The sound seemed to break the spell. The shadow thing retracted its hand and from the railing, and in a movement that was too fast, too fluid to be natural, it melted back into the darkness of the yard. One moment it was there and the next it was gone. I grabbed my keys and my wallet and drove to a 24-hour diner, where I sat in a brightly lit booth until sunrise, nursing a single cup of coffee. I knew I couldn't keep running. The next day, I installed motion-activated floodlights all around my house. I bought thicker, blackout curtains for every window. I even got a dog, a big, loud German shepherd named Max. For a while, it worked. The nights were quiet. Max was a comfort, his presence a warm, living shield against the creeping dread. I started to feel safe again. I started to believe it was over. One night, a few months later, the motion lights in the backyard snapped on, flooding the lawn with brilliant white light. Max went berserk, barking and growling at the back door. My blood ran cold. I grabbed a heavy flashlight and crept to the door, my hand on Max's collar. I peered through the peephole, but Max was still frantic, his hackles raised. It had just adapted. I saw its shadow moving across the illuminated wall of the house next door. A tall, distorted silhouette climbing the side of my house. I heard a faint scratching sound from above. It was on the roof. I thought about moving, about selling the house and leaving this all behind. But a part of me is terrified that it isn't the house it's interested in. It's me. What does it want? Why is it here? The world outside my window doesn't just get dark. And I know that somewhere out there, in the shadows, it's watching. And it's waiting. So next time you're alone and you hear a strange noise outside, or you see a flicker of movement in the corner of your eye, tell yourself it's just the wind. Tell yourself it's just your imagination. It's probably true. But maybe, just to be safe, don't look too closely out the window. You might not like what's looking back. If you've ever experienced something you can't explain, let me know in the comments below. Stay safe and don't forget to like and subscribe for more strange tales. See you next time.